The people who sell drugs and make drugs are the political cartels that create the drugs for people to have access to regularly and to get their hands on and then redistribute throughout neighborhoods in America, and even drug smuggling that comes from other parts of the world, different countries. When you see drugs being smuggled in and when you see regular people who have access to drugs, is because those that are in power, the knights of society, those that basically get together and worship in the temples at the seats where they are all gathered at this round table, they discuss ways on how to dehumanize and to depopulate the masses by creating systematic flows of what is going to then bring down the ratio of a modernization of people. So if you look at, for an example, drugs is not something that people have created or have cooked up, and they created this cycle of infesting crime at the rate of one's ability for profit. No, it comes from higher ups, and you see the struggle for survival is basically come down to conditioning each individual to be sheep, to be a victim, and to create this survival of the instinct that one must actually do what is by all means to make their own way of gaining and supplying and basically fighting and to kill for resources, basic resources and necessities, has been used and weaponized by the system that is in place, that is run by, we know the Jesuits of societies, we know the Jewish cartels and their banking systems. We know that they have organized ways to keep people in committing crime in order to create per capita. See, we have been born into the illusion that our basic necessities such as food, water, shelter has to be obtained through rigid taking, which is something that we could naturally obtain on our own. See, man can create his own land. He can create his own property. He can go and grow his own crops and fertilization. He could supply his own needs through natural resources. But the laws in this country, you cannot create verily on your own. You cannot create your own property that you can build yourself on land which the government owns and regulates, and that all land has to be regulated and controlled, and that each person is subjected to zoning laws to where they're entrenched into being in a system that is regulated and set up by this beast government and system. And I'm only saying this is because the truth, because people end up buying into where they have to go and make whatever ends meet, whatever rigid way, whatever desperate way, whatever ruthless and survival of the fittest mentality. So when you see people being forced into doing things such as making illegal currency in order to supply their needs, they end up selling drugs that they have been subjected under those who have created the war on drugs, for an example, the government cartel that you see that monitors basically all the drugs that you see that come in from Colombia, Venezuela, that come in through Czechoslovakia, all of the Latin American countries where cartels and even other places where all these different drugs, these different plants that are in these different regions, they are shipped in. And the war on drugs has been a regulated system for political gain. People in political positions of power, they've created a mantra in order to suppress people. And it's for the purpose of regulation, deregulation, and also for the popularization to be under control. So when they create these drugs, they create the drugs so that people will have access in knowing where to get these drugs that have been put in the community, and they have been bought into a systematic design to where they are under the hypnosis to become servants of illegal substances. So they condition people to where they have to chase, believe it or not, after what is of an illegal substance in order to make a living for themselves. People just don't choose to be criminals. They don't choose to just go and sell drugs. They are conditioned, they are wired, they are set up as a fight or flight mechanism for survival, because they have made deliberately so rampantly difficult for anyone just to survive off the basic necessities here in this country and even in other third world countries. You have a very small survival rate because of the drug trafficking that goes on right and center. You have the human trafficking that is out in the open. You have crooked authorities that cover up murders when it comes to making illegal paper currency to the advantage that they seek after. But we do this here, you see in America, is covertly. It is done secretly, not specifically out in the open. So when you look at the war on drugs, it is a way that has been created to incarcerate people, to set people up to be the victim, to where they're put in this frame in order to make, the money that they need in terms of having to fight to survive, to do what is at an all means cost by making money as quick as possible in this illegal setup fashion. They condition people because they take everything away that the average person needs, basic needs of survival. So they force people, they actually, even though we have a choice, people have a choice to not go out and commit crimes. And this is not me, what I'm saying here, condoning or telling anyone that it is right by any necessarily means to go out and sell drugs, commit crimes, to live illegally, to support oneself. But you are put in the frame to where it's like you are controlled even in a way against your own will, even though you are committing what is of your own free will in whatever which way to make money, whether it be legally or illegally. But people just don't go and choose to sell drugs. They have been sold under a criminal enterprise system to where they have been set up, to where they have made it to where people have been allured into drugs, because drugs are everywhere in the ghettos of America. Drugs are pushed everywhere on the street corners. Look, recreational marijuana is now legal. Why is that? Because they are pushing the drug epidemic in order to sedate people so that people will do whatever which way they can to make money, such as in the process of making bets. You see, we have been bought into killing ourselves by selling drugs to each other, by making money off of profiting off of substances. And we think that this is our own doing, but the very people in power have monopolized. They have created this whole war on drugs as a way to make people the enemy ultimately all overall, and to give people to where it's like they have a physical option of choice, to where they are actually selling drugs because they put it in front of their faces. The governments and the powers that be, believe it or not, have mind tricked people into making them to where they have subjected themselves in order for you to feed your family, to feed your children, because we're not going to give you any of the jobs, all the jobs that we've outsourced in this country to other countries like China, to Korea, to Russia, we could just say, or the Netherlands. We have sold our infrastructure so that people would not be able to be qualified for the jobs to support themselves, the average working class individual. Only the top 1% have all access to education. They have access to fundamental resources such as the proper healthcare system, the proper engineering of, mathematical equation of, let's say logistics, for an example, the advantage of measuring, adding, supplying, that is of demand to where they have the ability. And we look at the average person is stripped completely to where he is put in the position where he has to do something that is illegal in order to survive. And they make all these drugs that you see are made availably easy to get involved and to end up selling and to end up distributing, because it's put there in order to create criminals. You see, the government, which is owned by the central bank, every country is owned by a central bank. I just want to let you know. And the central banks have created the flow called the war on drugs. Now, the reason why they create the drug epidemic is because it's in order to create the flow of depopulation, because when drugs are being sold and they're regulated, people who have access to these drugs, they either end up getting caught going to prison, doing long jail sentences, if not life in prison. While they're in prison, these people who are inmates like any other inmates most of them end up dying, getting murdered in prison, or they die by committing suicide, or the drugs themselves end up taking one's life. People end up dying off overdoses of all different types of paraphernalia and drugs. And that is why you take a look at it, it's a way to slowly depopulate, because the war on drugs is a perfect example how it's created. And it's also created for political purposes, so that people have campaigns to establish, so that they can create a boogeyman. They create a good guy and a bad guy. They create what is of an enemy or what is of an ally in the judicial system that has been created. Now, I am not saying anything evil against authority. I am not pointing out anything that is me as a conspiracy theorist or some anarchist. I'm speaking who controls society, who controls the very fabrics of even who you think you are in this world's monetary system. In America, you are basically owned. When you go to work, you have a social security that is in the databases of these corporations, whatever corporation you work for. And your social security is tied to all of your information. So when they have access to your social security, when you fill out a job position, or when you have a career such as working for a transit company, working for the train systems or working at airports, you are subjected to the government, to where your social security, they have access so that they could use you in any type of way that they want. They could mold you in any particular setting, for where they could strip whatever belongings that you have. If you have a bank account, a routing number that is tied to your bank account, they have access through your social security, your date of birth. See, all the things, as far as when it comes to identity, is all because it's a way to then for them to track you. You see, a social security is all based off of them being able to track you and to enslave you, to be able to set you up. That's why we have a social security, is because to the government, we are simply numbers. They look at us as numbers. Why do you think in jail people are identified by numbers that they have either on their sleeves or the back of their shirts, or even some of them have it where they have numbers tatted in the back of their necks? Because you are a statistic to the leaders that run the show, such as Rome, such as the Jewish banking cartel systems. They run America. They run all of the systems of the world. They are behind all of the political elites, all of the drugs that you see that have been going around, where you see massive incarceration. It has been created by these cartels, these elites, these so-called engineers for the New World Order that work for Satan. And the people that you see regularly who are arrested for crimes, they're merely victims. Even though they're acting out by their own free will, even though they're physically going around, you see someone who's a drug dealer, yes, they're selling drugs and they have a choice that they're making, but they're put in to being forced to make that choice. If you really see the reason why you have crime is because they set up an engineer for crime to be something that is an ongoing sort of structure, because that's what creates the lobbyists to have power. They make it to where crime is something that has to exist on a exponential scale, so that this way they have the power to put people in jail, to make money off of putting people in the prison systems. The prison system is an industrialized system that is meant for profit. When you have so many people who are in prison that don't deserve to be in prison, it is because they make money off the system. Taxpayers' money funds basically people who are in prison. Your taxes is actually supporting innocent people, people who don't deserve to even be in jail or in jail. And they put innocent people to death because it's a ratio. It is a quota system. See, the courts in this country, sadly, if you look around, are all run by corrupt lobbyists. They are run by corporatists. Why do you think John F. Kennedy was assassinated? Is because he wanted to put the gold standard back on the dollar bill, and they wasn't having it. They realized because it would destroy us out of the business that we have been making off of printing worthless paper. See, money is not backed by any substance whatsoever. It is meaningless. But putting gold on the money supply would literally strengthen our currency, and that we would have value to our currency. But you take a look at why JFK was assassinated. You take a look at why Prohibition was reinstated when it was made illegal, because alcohol kills. Alcohol is a poison. It is an opium. And they realize that people will end up killing themselves off of drinking alcohol, which is spirits, which is of the devil, when you really look at it. Because how many people die from drunkenness, drunk driving? It's just another way to set people up, to put people in the prison system. So they create where people have access to alcohol, all different forms of alcohol, and it's a way to shorten people's lives because people end up dying off of liver disease and so forth. People end up dying because of drunk driving, DUIs, where people are now arrested. Now they're put in the court system. And you look at it like these are people who have free will, but they give you this sort of free will where they force it onto you. They make it fashionable. Drugs is fashionable. Alcohol is fashionable. All perverted sex is fashionable. And they want people to engage in these practices that are all wicked, which is from Satan, is because they want to promote destruction, and they want to enslave people, and they want to depopulate people. So all the stuff that you see that is being legalized, even sex trafficking of children, you see is going on under the rug by these Zionists, these elitists. These people that you see in Washington, D.C. are mere puppets, but they are also part of the rituals. They take blood sacrifices. They're involved in all forms of ritualizations of child sacrifices, animal sacrifices, all different types of sex trafficking, all different types of homosexuality that is being promoted and being fashionable, is because it is a way to destroy society, to destroy the fabrics of man and woman, and to desensitize that which is of innocence. But you know that Jesus Christ is coming back. Jesus is going to come back to those who are sinners, those who are unrepented, those who are living for this beast system, those who have sold their souls to Satan and that will not turn from their wickedness. He is going to slay them. He is going to slaughter and bring judgment on the children of disobedience, those who are enemies of God's kingdom. And that is why you take a look at people are victims, even though they commit the very acts that they do that are heinous. They have been made to be marginalized. They have been made to be in the image of the beast because people have been deceived. For the love of many shall grow cold, and that men will be lovers of themselves, lovers of pleasure rather than lovers of God, lovers of money, boastful, proud, disobedient. Children will be disobedient to their parents. You take a look at discord is in the churches today because the Jewish cartels and Rome has created false doctrines, has created this system of divide and conquer. All the denominational churches today that you see here in America are working for the Antichrist system. Religion is part of the entertainment system that we see here in this country. All the perversion and all the filth is tied into the churches. The real church is the church of Jesus Christ only. And as those who abide in Jesus Christ, those are his disciples. And if you keep my word, if you continue to abide in my word, then you shall be saved. We know that all of the people in Hollywood are masquerading. They're parading behind closed doors of these churches, all of these denomination sects. Do you know that you are living in a bubble if you do not see what is going on? If you can't see the forest for the trees, everything is rigged. But it's rigged for a reason, because the world is all about control. The world is all about monetary gain. The world is all about lying to people, tying people's imaginations into a fragmentation that is warped to their own promiscuity, their evil deeds, their narcissism, wanting power, thirsting for power, evil, murder in their hearts. The murder of innocent children is being condoned everywhere. And that we have to fight against this evil system of corruption That is through the power of surrender. Only through Jesus Christ can we have liberation from all of the evil that keeps on persisting. We must